And welcome to the Jameel Rawls Show. And what I would like to go over is the idea of intelligence and intelligence gathering and how intelligence historically has worked, how it is currently working, and where is it going from this point on. Now, in the past, over the last few years, multiple years, I've just been a conspiracy researcher, but through the act of conspiracy research, I was able to discover for myself how intelligence agents and intelligence networks actually gather information, and then it has helped me in my own life to plan for my life and decide different things in my life, how to know how to associate with different people. It actually improves your street smarts a lot. So if you have street smarts and you study intelligence, you might be the safest person on the earth. Now, criminology. Oh, I'll start off like this. I started off learning little simple things like, if I have a letter or I have some typed paperwork and there's a particular kind of ink, how do I know that it's a real letter, that this letter came from this era? How do I know if a letter actually came from the 1930s versus the 1950s? Right? I would have to test the ink. So I would need something called a tintometer. And a tintometer in a laboratory setting, if I had the finance to get one, or if I knew a venue to go to use it, I could test my ink, and with the right type of guidance, I can find out, hey, this ink came from Turkey. We're looking at the area of Turkey. They only use specific inks in the country of Turkey back in the 1930s. This may have in fact actually came from the Soviets in the 50s. And so that kind of stuff excited me. I was like, wow, that's how these people, decide, make intelligent decisions, decide where the ink comes from and whatnot. One of the things that I got into was called pictorial intelligence. Now, pictorial intelligence was very exciting to me. For the simple fact is, I was looking into an era of World War I, and there was no computers being used. The Germans in World War I, specifically Germany, the Germans in World War I would just fly over a certain area and just take pictures, photographic pictures. Then they would sit there for hours and hours and hours and hours studying the photographs, and that was pictorial intelligence. Now, pictorial intelligence went back much farther than World War I in Germany. It went back to the beginning of aeronautics, which is air balloons coming out of the United States of America. In the 1700s, people would fly over with air balloons and chart areas, look at who their neighbors were in towns away. Now they might not have taken pictures of it, but moving on up into the Civil War, people did take pictures. Professor Thaddeus Lowe helped Lincoln begin the aeronautics team for the Union. Professor Thaddeus Lowe was very smart. He basically went to Lincoln and he said, you need an aeronautics team. You need to know Confederacy movements, where the Confederacy is. Him and Lincoln got it going. It proved successful. At the same time, though, the Confederacy, a lot of people don't know, Jefferson Davis and the Confederacy put together their own aeronautics team to spy on the Union. And a lot of people aren't aware of that. But none of these people had computers. The most they had was cameras. So you had people who would just sit there and train their minds in pictorial intelligence for hours and hours and hours and hours. And so studying that fascinated me greatly in intelligence. Now, a lot of people I'm thinking the subject, a lot of people in today's world, they go to websites like CIA.gov and stuff, and they try to look for old books and stuff. That's probably like 15% of U.S. intelligence. I would think the CIA would be like 15% of U.S. intelligence. So going back to history books and looking at things like the Civil War, World War I, what the Germans were doing around World War I and other parts of the world, that's where you're going to pick up the most info from. If you can go look at like what foreign countries were doing 50, 60 years ago and just learn from the history books how these agents were out there processing information, because in reality, it doesn't matter how much data you have. There's people in today's world say, man, they got these supercomputers and they can listen to every phone conversation. They know everything. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much data somebody has. If they cannot analyze the data and process it, it's no good. I can have a whole warehouse full of documents, but if I don't know how to properly analyze the documents, it's not going to do me. I can't do anything with it. So the process of being able to train your mind to analyze data that's what the definition of intelligence is. You have data, you analyze the data, then you create an intelligence off of it. So now in today's world, now this cuts into criminology and penology, whatever I guess it's what you're using your intelligence for. But I was looking at some recent software in the last year or two dealing with predictive policing and artificial intelligence. I just find that fascinating that there's computers who are giving police a scenario, a synopsis of where crime is happening at, what's going to happen. I just think that's fascinating. Crime forecasting. A lot of this stuff I believe is helpful. Anytime you're dealing with computers and software for predictive policing, I think metro intelligence. Like in New York City, I was just reading an article in New York City, like Manhattan and stuff. Man, I bet you the metro intelligence people have got all kinds of computers and software and experimental software. They're probably like 20 years ahead of the rest of the country. But I noticed, through my research, through studying, I noticed that a lot of people don't use common sense. Like when an incident happens, I was reading a book written years ago, and in the book they were going over police work, and in the book, one of the perpetrators was talking about how he would hide evidence if the clothing had evidence on it, like powder burns from a gun or blood or whatever like that. Like he would hide the evidence in a Goodwill. He would go to a rescue mission or the Goodwill and just wash the clothes and just throw them away in there. And most people don't think that, because who's going to go to a Goodwill and look for all the clothes that got dropped off there the last 2 days? Nobody. So somebody who is conducting criminal activity and they're intelligent, the first place I would go, if I had some affiliation with some nefarious activity like that, I would just drop my clothes off at the Goodwill. Who the hell is going to go to the Goodwill and look through all this stuff? I've never seen investigators out there going that angle. Like, hey, let's go to the Goodwill. Let's get all the clothes together. Let's find out where the person... You just never ever see that. Even though we have all these computers in today's world, you would think common sense isn't so common anymore. And then, moving on, this stuff gets into how the brain works. See, intelligence, the ability to acquire and apply knowledge and skills. I think the most pivotal form of intelligence is experience. Your experience of something. Because I come from like the same school Bruce Lee comes from. Bruce Lee says if it works, it works. Doesn't matter where it's from. If it works, if you have a system of learning or something, or figure. This is the 1828 dictionary right here. Latin intelligentsia from intelligio. To understand, the verb is probably composed of it. Into is within, and lego, to collect. The primary sense of understand is generally to take or hold, as we say, to one's own ideas or meanings. The primary sense of understand. And I don't even like using the word understand. I will go out of my way to say understand or overstand, because understanding something doesn't actually mean what's your comprehension of it, as people think. People often use that word, understand. And it doesn't necessarily mean what people think it does. But moving on, understanding skill. Notice information, communicate it, an account of things distant or before known. Intelligence may be transmitted by messengers, by letters, by signals, or by telegraphs. Commerce, or commerce. or acquaintance. Terms of intercourse. That's fascinating, terms of intercourse. Good intelligence between men is harmony. So we say there is a good understanding between persons when they have the same views or a free form of discord. A spiritual being, as a created intelligence, it is believed that the universe is peopled with innumerable superior intelligences. See, I like stuff like that. When you're doing a reading from a dictionary, and they pay homage to the spiritual realm and spiritual intelligence, you know you're getting some real knowledge. Oh, right now I'm looking through some photographs. When you type in predictive policing software. See, I don't like this stuff. When it comes, I like the old school stuff like Soviet countermeasures and the Soviet Political Bureau and like the Soviet intelligence stuff. I like that kind of stuff, like the old school stuff, like behind the iron wall type stuff. Yeah, Defense Intelligence Agency intelligence, stuff like that. Lie detector, Soviet spy case revives debate. Because even though they say the Cold War ended, there's so much information that people just don't even know about. People don't even get. And knowledge is an never-ending. Knowledge is, you can always gain knowledge. Anti-satellite weapons, countermeasures, and arms control. I tell you, I don't know what's going on, but the school system. I keep saying this. I repeatedly tell people this. The school system used to educate people a lot better than what it does today. I have high school yearbooks from the 1950s, and I look at the high school yearbooks, and I see they taught calculus, Latin, math, business, and law in high school back in the 1950s, local high schools, and you can't even get that through a university program in today's world. You don't even get that. You don't get calculus and Latin and law. I mean, even it's not even mandatory for Catholic priests to have to learn Latin anymore. It used to be mandatory. If you wanted to be a priest, you had to have some skill in Latin. You don't even got to do that anymore. I think all these computers make people lazy. Because when you look to like old school intelligence networks, like they even tied their shoelaces in certain ways and did all like, you know, those guys. Could put stuff together out of nothing. These computers are tripped out. You know? And then dealing with pictorial, going back to where we started, pictorial intelligence. A lot of cops around the police officers around the country who work the gang unit. They're real, or at least they used to be. They probably use just computers now, but they used to use maps of different neighborhoods. Like in Chicago, you have a gang unit. New York, California, everywhere you go around the country, in a major city, there's some sort of gang unit. And the guys who work for the gang unit, a lot of them are really on speed when it comes to what we're talking about pictorial intelligence, because the maps change all the time. Street gangs don't go by geographical boundaries. We're in this town, we're in that town. Street gang members don't care. They'll move right in the alley behind back of your house. And so it's constantly rotating. Street gangs are constantly rotating. And so anybody who works a gang unit, like the map's going to change. Hey, next week, this guy moved out, these people moved in, and street gangs are smart. Street gang member could tell a hand sign from like 50 yards away, 40 yards away. These people are, so these cops are constantly making these map grids. This reminds me of the San Francisco crime sketches. Hold on, I'm typing San Francisco crime sketches. Dealing with, I think it's cool. This is one of the coolest things to me for people who get off into independent research, is you can actually say, wait a minute. I don't believe that's what actually happened. Matter of fact, I know that's not what happened. And now I want to go back and check it out. You got all kinds of crazy stuff that happened 34. Nobody knows. Like the Detroit babysitter killer. Like to this day, nobody knows. Supposedly, nobody knows. I think California is the most interesting place for stuff like that. But anyway, okay, anyhow, I'm getting off the topic. How much time do I have? 20 minutes in. Let me see if I can find something more interesting than that. Let me type in alien to see what comes up. When you deal with the internet, there's two subjects that are the most looked at: aliens and pornography. Out of all the people who come on the internet, the two subjects people look at is sex and aliens. And somewhere along the line, I think sex and aliens go together. The alien abduction. Pascal man says. This stuff is a little frightening. And then an alien, see, the thing about the word alien is an alien doesn't necessarily mean an extraterrestrial. You can have a being that's extraterrestrial that is not alien. It's still humanoid. You can be from billions of light years away and still be humanoid. You don't have to be alien. Somebody can come here from across the galaxy and look like us and be humanoid. There could be something living right here on this planet and not be human and be alien. Like there's creatures that are alien to us. Like dolphins and different sorts of creatures are alien. But they're terrestrial though. Earth is their home. So being an alien and being an extraterrestrial is two different things. And you better believe they're here too. Better believe there's creatures here like that. Let me before I get off here, let me type in World War II and see what comes up. I like watching the kamikaze. Then with the Japanese, there's the battle over LA that happened. A lot of people don't know this. You had Pearl Harbor, but then there was the battle over LA, which they tried to say was a flying saucer. And it was actually the Japanese. The battle over at Los Angeles. A lot of people don't know about this. Searchlights and anti-aircraft guns combed sky during alarm. How mystery air raid of 1942 appeared as shells burst in the air. You know, that's the thing is like, and then again, the Japanese didn't fly all the way here from Japan. When you look at World War II, the Pearl Harbor, and I'm sure they had what you call like reconnaissance missions and stuff. I believe, you know, it gets into pictorial intelligence definitely, but I believe the Japanese, they were on the island. They had all those islands on the Pacific, so they weren't that far from Hawaii to begin with. The Japanese were already close enough. I remember I heard somebody say that some older man asked the Japanese. He was in World War II, and he got around somehow to communicating with the Japanese, and he asked the Japanese, why didn't they fully invade the United States? And the Japanese said that the reason why they didn't fully invade it, he said it wasn't because of the United States military. It was because that most Americans have guns, especially at that time. And had they fully invaded the United States, I mean, the United States is vast and far, and there's all these people who have guns in the country. And so that's why they didn't. That was, at least that's one of the reasons why, perhaps. Battle over LA. All right, and this is the Jameel Rawls Show.